Good evening. More than 40 South African Air Force aircraft today completed a major phase of their involvement in Exercise Thunder Chariot, which is being held at the PW Botha Exercise Terrain at Lahatla in the far northern Cape. Exercise Thunder Chariot is the biggest divisional exercise held in the military history of South Africa and is now involving more than 11,000 troops. Charles Poe reports from the Air Force Base at Uppington.
The air battle phase of this exercise has been in progress for the past 10 days. At one stage, there were as many as 42 aircraft involved in this operation. This is the highest count of aircraft to be involved in a peacetime military exercise in this country. Aircraft taking part included Mirages, Impalas, Canberras, Buccaneers, C-130s, C-160s, Bosbok, Dakotas and helicopters. Aircraft were brought in from squadrons throughout the country and have been flying out from the runway here at Uppington. 93 Tactical Airfield Unit with 525 men is supplying the infrastructure for this operation. They are normally based at Eysterplaat. The aircraft are tasked from Uppington. The communications network is supplied from here and the aircraft are maintained from this temporary base, which is in the veld just beyond the civilian airport building. As part of this morning's exercise, the South African Air Force Impala was presumed shot down over enemy territory. A number of aircraft were scrambled from Uppington to retrieve the pilot who it was presumed had bailed out. 2 Impalas first took off to provide protective air cover. A Bosbok was then placed in the air to do the spotting, and these aircraft were followed by a Puma helicopter which had the task of recovering the bailed out pilot.
1 man was killed and a policeman seriously injured in Katlehong today when the home of the township's mayor was set alight following the funeral of a victim of last week's rioting. It was the only incident of unrest reported today. Meanwhile, a meeting between the Lakoa Town Council, which controls most townships in the Vaal Triangle, and the delegation of inhabitants has ended in deadlock over a proposed rent increase. Chris Olkers reports.
The damage after a bloody week of violence is estimated to run into more than 30 million rand. At least 31 people have died and scores have been injured. The mayor, Mr. Mashlatsi, said he did not believe that the rent increase was the main reason of the unrest.
Coming to the second point, which was claimed to be the cause for the unrest, that is now the rent. Our answer to the people is that this council took cognizance of the fact that the whole South Africa is experiencing an economic decline. And that this council went out of its way, out of its own accumulated funds, which it would have used for the improvement in the area, to the tune of 1.9 million rand, to subsidize the rentals, which would have been far more higher had we not subsidized them by that amount.
A group of 25 hostages has been flown into South Africa from Angola, about 6 months after having been seized by UNITA forces in the country. A Red Cross plane flew the captives into Johannesburg from the main UNITA camp at Jamba, but newsmen have been denied access to the hostages who are bound for their home destinations. The group includes 11 nuns who will be returning to Rome and hostages from Portugal, Spain, Cape Verde, Colombia and Mexico. The 25 were apparently taken prisoners by UNITA in various northern areas of Angola and had trekked several hundred kilometers through dense forest. In Botswana today, polling was extended by an hour to accommodate the long queues of voters in the first general election since the death of Siseretse Khama. Voting was to close at 7 tonight, but with 300,000 eligible to vote by secretly choosing from different coloured cards representing each of the 6 contesting parties, queues 150 metres long were still evident at some polling stations in Gaborone near closing time. To prevent people from voting more than twice, voters immersed their left thumb in a dark blue solution which will not wash off for days. In the last election, the ruling Botswana Democratic Party won 29 of the 32 seats. 52 passengers aboard the hijacked Iranian airliner have stormed their way to freedom shortly after the plane, which was commandeered on a domestic flight in Iran, landed at Cairo airport. The passengers rushed outside the plane when its door was opened to evacuate a wounded person. Britain's Northern Ireland conflict shifted to Glasgow today when the sizable Irish community has long reflected the Roman Catholic Protestant views in the strife-torn province. Large numbers of arrests were made as about 2,000 marchers protesting against British troops in Northern Ireland were confronted by counter-demonstrators.
Postmates were called in when the marchers were confronted by several hundred Orangemen, among them dozens of Northern Ireland loyalists. The jeers and taunts soon turned to violence, and the police had to charge into the crowd to stop the fighting. Most of those arrested have been charged with breach of the peace, and it's expected they'll be appearing in court on Monday. Although the police did their best to keep the rival groups apart, there were times during the fighting that streets had to be closed to traffic. Most of those injured during the march were hit by stones and beer cans. The organisers, who are calling for British troops to be withdrawn from Ireland, say they plan a further march in a few months' time. The police say they decided to allow the march knowing there might be trouble. They have confirmed that a number of those taking part came from Northern Ireland.
Iceland, one of the world's most active volcanic islands, has a spectacular new volcano. The eruption started in the northeastern corner of the island near Krasla. A 9-kilometre ridge formed rapidly, spouting red-hot lava more than 100 metres into the sky. The eruption is releasing 50 million cubic metres of lava a day. Fortunately, the northeastern parts of Iceland are lightly populated and no large population centres are threatened by the lava flow. In the United States, doctors are testing a new treatment for herpes. The medication stops the virus from propagating itself, but as yet it is not the final answer.
Doctors have long known that acyclovir, given intravenously, could shorten first episodes of herpes. The new multinational studies confirm that the drug also works when it's taken by mouth.
If one starts to use the acyclovir early enough, that one can shorten the duration of the clinical symptoms significantly. One can shorten the duration of viral shedding significantly. One can shorten down the symptoms, shorten considerably the length of time patients have symptoms of burning, pain, discomfort, difficulty with urination. The problem is it does not prevent recurrences.
Researchers say acyclovir appears to cut the shedding time, which is the time when the disease can be transmitted, to only 4 days or less.
Both Northern Transvaal and Free State remain in the running for the 1A section semi-final berth in the Currie Cup rugby competition. Cup champions Western Province are already assured of their position. In Port Elizabeth, the Blue Bulls had to fight for their 28-10 win over Eastern Province, while in Bloemfontein, Free State had things very much their own way in ousting troubled Transvaal 42-8. In Cape Town, Province ran riot against Northern Free State, winning 52-3. Southwest Africa are the new Sport Pienaar Trophy champions. Southwest scraped home 13-12 against Vaal Triangle in Sasolburg. England whitewashed South Africa in the 3-match series when they wrapped up the third and final squash international at the Westville Country Club in Durban. England won the first and second tests 3-love, but today they scraped home by 2-1 when Springbok captain Ian Holding beat Gawain Bryars 9-6, 9-5 and 10-8 in 74 minutes. It's the only match in the entire series that a South African has won. Morocco's Said Akita, the Olympic 5,000 metres champion, has convincingly won the men's mile at an athletics meeting at London's Crystal Palace Stadium. But the race was robbed of most of its competitive interest when Britain's Steve Cram fell heavily in the final lap. The incident is worth a second look. Akita raced home to victory in 3 minutes, 55,43 seconds, and again Cram finished in last place. We've just heard that Ivan Lendl is through to the final of the men's singles in the US Open Tennis Championships in New York. The Czech beat Australia's Pat Cash 3-6, 6-3, 6-4, 6-7, 7-6 in today's semi-final encounter. He meets the winners of Jimmy Connors and John McEnroe in the final, which will be broadcast live after transmission tomorrow night. All from us in the newsroom, and so until 8 o'clock, the Sunday's news in Afrikaans from us. Good night.